let's get you breaking news coming in. Wikileaks founder Julian Assange has touched down in Australia, walking free after 5 years. The Wikileaks founder has touched down in Canberra off Australia after what's been an endless ordeal for him. He's been freed after a plea deal with the United States where Assange essentially pled guilty to an espionage law breach. Now, of course, he is going to be based in Australia, with the Australian government also agreeing with, in fact, the ordeal that Assange has undergone, saying that it's dragged on for too long. Those are the first images on your screens where Assange, dressed in a suit and tie, walking out of, in fact, that airplane, is making his way to freedom finally after 5 long years. Remember that the 52-year-old has pled guilty, admitting to a single count essentially of conspiracy of obtaining and disseminating top secret documents in the United States. He's been under trial for the last many years, for the last 5 years, and during that time, even as the extradition fight continued, he's been lodged in a prison in the United Kingdom. And these are the images of Assange that you see there in Canberra, waving to the crowds, waving to the media gathered there. All smiles as he's finally free, walking free there and meeting with all of his loved ones and his entire legal team that's fought this battle for him for the last 5 years. Assange was released from a high-security British prison. Remember, he's been lodged there for the last 5 years while he fought extradition to the United States. Now, with him pleading guilty, he is now a free man. Why? Because he signed a plea deal with the United States. For, of course, Assange's family, his wife Stella, it's been a long, long fight for this very moment, for freedom. And it's, of course, been a very contentious issue in the United States, with a whole lot of support also that's poured in for Assange for the last 5 years. Remember that he's been in trouble fighting this legal battle over documents that Wikileaks had put out, over which America sued Assange, accusing him of disseminating top secret documents that belonged to the United States. The hearing of, in fact, the entire plea deal was taking place, in fact, close to the United States and close to, in fact, in North Mariana Islands, because Assange refused to touch down in America, fearing arrest. Gaurav Sawant is joining us with more details on this. Gaurav, what a moment for Julian Assange. A long, long fight for 5 years legally. He's been fighting it out with America, and now after signing a plea deal, he's now a free man.
14 years, it's an end. 14 years legal battle finally gets over. He's walked out free. This truly, as far as Julian Assange is concerned, is history being made for him. He, of course, had to plead guilty that he violated U.S. espionage law. But since he's pleaded guilty, this was the deal that he'd agreed with the administration, and now he's free to return home to Australia. So 14 years of struggle has finally come to an end, and it's quite amazing that the U.S., its smallest and the most remote federal district court, accepted that plea deal that was reached between Assange and the U.S. government, the U.S. administration, which meant that he had to admit his guilt to at least one criminal count, that he had conspired to obtain classified U.S. national security documents, military documents, national security and defense documents, and based on which, he was to serve time. But again, no supervisory period, no financial penalty. He's already served time in that Belmarsh prison in London, if you'd recall. And now, of course, he heads to Canberra.
So, Gaurav, at this point, he is in Canberra of Australia. What happens next? He is a free man right now, courtesy of the plea deal. He's going to be based out of Australia. But is this the end of really the legal ordeal for Assange?
Well, this was a 3-hour hearing, and we are told that now the U.S. government has already withdrawn its extradition request from the U.S. The U.S. government has dropped all remaining charges that were pending against him in the U.S. You'd recall that he remains banned from returning to the U.S. without clearance. So that is very clear. That he cannot go to the U.S. You'd recall that from London he'd been flown to that remote island, Saipan, and that is where the case took place. And after that, he's back in Australia. So those legal proceedings against him are over. The Justice Department had agreed to hold that hearing in that remote island because Assange had opposed that he would not travel to U.S. mainland. And also that he wanted to be closer to Australia. Now that they're sorted out legally, his cases, as far as the US are concerned, are over, and he's in Australia.
Okay, those images are on our screens of the grand welcome for Julian Assange in Canberra of Australia. A huge number of supporters who've gathered there, the media, and you can see Assange there waving to all of them, dressed in a suit, and meeting his family after years, getting to hug them. And you can see those emotional moments also that will play out in just a while on your screens as well. But fist up in the air, knowing full well the significance of this victory for him and for countless people who continue, in fact, to fight for free speech. Let's take this across to our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, for more details. Geeta, with, in fact, now Julian Assange making his way out of that high-security prison in the UK, now touching down in safe soil for him in Australia, what really does this mean going forward legally? He's pled guilty to the charge of espionage. So does this mean the end of the legal fight for him?
There certainly has been a plea bargain. Now, we do know that there were conversations, negotiations between Julian Assange, his team, and the US Justice Department. And it is only after the negotiations ended that he was allowed to be released. He is a free man as of now and is in Canberra, Akshita, his homeland. He's back in Australia, reunited with his family. But again, we'll have to wait and see where does this, because we do not have details on the plea bargain. What are the details? What are the nitty-gritties? What is it that he's allowed to say, not say, do, not do? We have no details on that. Whether there is going to be a future for Wikileaks, whether Wikileaks is going to continue the way it has been even after he was imprisoned, and we do not know where that will be headed. So there certainly is something that he's agreed on. We do not know of what those details are. Once we have a handle on what those details are, there'll be more clarity on whether this is temporary or rather permanent. And should he violate those terms and conditions which were negotiated with the US Justice Department, then this could not be the situation for him in the future. So for now, he walks a free man. For now, he's back in his homeland. He's landed in Canberra. But we'll again have to wait and see whether this is a long-term freedom or just a temporary freedom that has been bought because of a plea bargain.
Okay, so yet to get details about whether this is temporary reprieve, but you can see celebrations essentially among supporters of Julian Assange, supporters of Wikileaks, and of course for his family. What this also effectively means, Geeta, is that at this point there's no way that Assange can ever step foot in the United States.
Sorry, Akshita, could you come again?
At this point, Geeta, it looks like, based on the details that we have, Assange can never actually step foot in the United States.
Well, certainly not, and I do not know in which realm would he actually want to return to the United States of America, Akshita. Although he's not been released from the U.S., it was a case by the U.S., and he was languishing in a prison in the United Kingdom. Also, that he had taken asylum in the United Kingdom. So, setting foot in the United States of America for now is absolutely out of the question. But it's from the UK that he finally sought his freedom, got his freedom, and has now landed in Australia and Canberra.
All right. Thanks very much, Geeta, for joining us with those details. Images on your screens of that emotional reunion between Assange and his family members in Canberra. A moment he's been waiting for after 5 years of being lodged in that high-security prison in UK. Now, Julian Assange, for the moment at least, is a free man.